and welcome to tonight's Anthem Memory Care educational webinar, Clarity is Kindness, What We May Be Doing Wrong in Caregiving, an honest look at familiar habits and how to do better. At Anthem, we believe that supporting families on the dementia journey means not only caring for the residents in our home, in our communities, but also empowering caregivers at home with knowledge, resources, and encouragement. That's why we're proud to host these free monthly webinars to provide education, connection, and peace of mind. Our speaker tonight is LaVon Lenaway. LaVon is the founder and owner of Dragonfly Senior Navigation Services, LLC, based in Illinois. LaVon is a gerontologist, an educator, and a consultant in navigating dementia care. She obtained a Master of Arts degree in gerontology from Concordia University, and her undergraduate degree is from Trinity Christian College. She has over 26 years of experience in advocacy, dementia care, senior living, support group facilitation, and education. Her enjoyment of this field continues to grow and solidify. This is her wheelhouse. LaVon has grown to love helping address concerns about dementia care, the importance of finding the least restrictive environment, promoting the right to self-determination, the value of education and linkage to resources for informal caregivers, as well as professional frontline staff, all with the important use of humor, warmth, and empathy. LaVon, we really appreciate hearing from you again tonight.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. Nicole, did you have anything you wanted to say before we get started?
Nope, I think Jamie covered it. We're all set. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So good evening, everyone. It's nice to have you here. I am working out of my home in Batavia, Illinois. So it's under my understanding that I've got an audience to and fro. So that's pretty exciting to me. Thank you for that nice introduction. I'm going to get started. This is one of my favorite presentations because it brings up a lot of really important topics. This particular presentation was inspired by the conversations I would have with family members when I worked in memory care communities. And it dawned on me that there were a whole bunch of conversations that were happening that were not obvious or not common sense, really, when it came to dementia care for family caregivers. You know, it's not intuitive, so it's no surprise that we may not know some of these things. The way this presentation is organized is kind of like if you ever got a raffle basket, and a raffle basket has a whole bunch of different things in it. This is a whole bunch of different topics that you're bound to hopefully hear something that is helpful to you. Some things may apply to your situation and some may not. So kind of stick around and just wait for something that might apply to your particular situation. I just did this presentation on Monday at a church nearby, and somebody came up to me afterwards and said, "You hit pretty close to home on a lot of these." So that's the highest of compliments as far as I'm concerned. All right, so we'll get started. I have a few kind of disclaimers at the beginning. Let's see here. It's important to know that I am not a neurologist. I am not a neuropsychologist. So I do have my master's in gerontology, but I always ask that you stay first and foremost connected to your medical professionals regarding all of these conversations. I speak in generalizations, but there may be exceptions to the rules once in a while. The other inspiration to this presentation is a memory that I have when my mom was in hospice. She was in a hospice house in my hometown in Iowa. And while she was actively transitioning to death, the nurses, who I still am convinced were angels with their wings tucked behind their shirts, the nurses there told us, me and my three older sisters, what to anticipate in my mom's passing, of what her skin might feel like, what her breathing might be like. And they give you this little blue book. Maybe some of you are familiar with this from past experiences. But they were telling us a bunch of things that we didn't want to hear about our mom. But I really deeply appreciated that they were being honest with me and transparent, because I wanted to navigate how I navigated those realities. And I would rather be aware of things than not, right? So this little blue book is my inspiration. It's just a couple pages, right, where they are pretty honest about what happens when a person's actively transitioning. All that to say is that while we're not going to be talking about active transitioning tonight, the gift that clarity and that honesty is. And so just like Brene Brown, she's a pretty popular social worker out in the arena. She talks about how clarity is kindness. And that is one of the reasons that I love this presentation, is that we might hit on a few nerves and we might find out that we might be doing something less than perfect, but it's good for us to know. So knowledge is power, right? So you're the expert on your loved one. Nobody knows your loved one like you do. And that is something nobody's going to disagree about, right? But it's also important to know that the professionals in the arena, maybe in a memory care community, maybe in the neurology office, maybe the speakers at the library, or wherever you kind of stumble upon professionals, they're the expert on the disease. And best practice is that you, being the expert on your loved one, works closely with the professionals, because you both have things to learn from each other. I can promise you, having worked in memory care communities, that the people that work in a memory care community who are new to caring for your loved one want to know all the details that you know, from what their favorite food is, their favorite music, their past career, their family makeup, any family dynamics. In one of the memory care communities where I worked, there was a big sign back by the time clock for the frontline staff, and it said, do not say this political leader's name in front of this resident, because the family warned us that she did not like that political leader, and we were going to have a bad day in the community if that name was mentioned in front of that particular resident. That's really important information that family members hold, that professionals can really benefit from. And knowing what is their favorite things and things that they love is also important, right? So if they're having a bad day, maybe we redirect them to their favorite music or favorite scripture or favorite poetry or art or a project or an activity. And so it's important to know the value of communicating what you know to them, but it's also important for us to kind of, because my mom had vascular dementia, my in-laws had and have dementia, and it's important for us to learn from the experts too, so that we can, in the same way that I learned from those nurses in the hospice house, that we can start to adjust, that we can start to grapple with the reality, that we can keep up our grieving with the changes. All right, so we're going to go through 17 examples, and here's my little disclaimers here. Please don't be offended if I push a nerve of maybe something that we're learning that we may not be doing in the best way. We're all learning, right? So that's that just keeps us humble. Please don't be embarrassed if you realize that you did something wrong in the past. And then every individual is different, so there may be nuance. We are always up for a good discussion. The favorite phrase that I love to say, I maybe said it in my last presentation, is that when you've met one person with dementia, you've met only one person with dementia. Very hard it is to lump folks together in this particular disease, because there are different diseases, there are different ages, genders, socioeconomic levels, past traumas, ethnicities, so many things that make us individuals that we just can't lump folks together that are in a memory care. Nor would we want to be lumped together with other people if we lived there, right? So we want to make sure we're treating others like we would want to be treated. All right, so we want to work directly with our professionals, doctors, neurologists, neuropsychologists, dietitians, social workers. When a diagnosis of dementia comes into our story, we want to make sure that we don't forego the other professionals in the story. It's really important that we keep those appointments and we keep those connections. So the first myth that I want to talk about is one from my own family. I'm not going to sell out any particular family member of mine, but maybe she did say to me one time, Medicare is going to cover for somebody to take care of me in my home. I'm not going to leave my home. I'm going to go out feet first, and I'm going to stay here for as long as possible. And yeah, Medicare will pay for it. And I kind of gave her that look of, what are you talking about? So it's important that we understand first and foremost that there is no magic bullet in terms of paying for things willy-nilly in our home. What there are two things to consider. The first one is for people that have assets below $17,500, at least in the state of Illinois, I should say. This is an example. Maybe the numbers are different in your state. You might be eligible for what's called the community care program, where you can get some help in the home. And then Illinois specifically is one of 4 states where there's what's called a guide program. I don't want to get into the weeds of that. It's not really fully built and running like it should be quite yet. And so maybe that will be a presentation in the future once they get that kind of launched. But it's a traditional Medicare-based program that comes alongside caregivers who are navigating dementia, but it's not US wide, and the bugs have not been worked out yet, so I will not spend too much time on that one. All right, so I have had, bless their hearts, good, well-meaning people say, for example, if a daughter says, well, I have to go to work, so I just put Post-it notes all over the house. For example, I put a Post-it note on the fridge that told her that she needed to have her vitamins with her lunch. And I put her lunch in the fridge for her to warm up. And part of dementia at some level, pretty quickly, actually, a person might see a Post-it note and even see and recognize that there are markings on that, and maybe even be able to read it out loud. But one of the things that we lose early on is the meaning of things. So even if they're looking at a piece of paper and they're looking at the words, and even if they can say what the words are, the idea that that information goes into their mind and their mind tells their body to do something, in this particular example of taking vitamins with their lunch, it's just not going to happen. Let's be very honest. And I think that family caregivers really hold on to the leaving of notes as something that makes their lives a little bit easier. But in all reality, it actually leads to a lot of frustration because they are not reading them as if they're instructions. We all function like that, but folks that have dementia don't see them as instructions or even a peace of mind, right? So I've had loved ones say, well, I write on a piece of paper that I will be home at 2:00. But what is 2:00 to a person with dementia? Pretty early on, that becomes quite confusing, right? So we have to realize that we need a different plan. And generally, that means a person needs to be with them in the home, guiding them to the vitamins, reminding them about the vitamins, and so on. So we also have to recognize that some people might have a vision impairment. So the whole idea of writing notes is just not the best practice in terms of how we guide our loved ones with dementia. Maybe early on, a note will help. But how do we know when the notes stop working, right? Well, we learn soon enough when we realize they didn't take our cues. So it's important that we are using real people with real reminders as the best approach. Number 3. Oh, she's not as bad as you say that you think, or you're making it sound, right? She's not as bad as you're making it sound. So when I was doing a consultation in a home not so long ago, this family was telling me pretty lengthy stories about how their loved one was attempting to walk outside the home, not appropriately dressed, leaving the gas stove on, and various different examples that were kind of implying to me that this particular person should maybe not be home alone for a long period of time, because then they kind of started getting into some unsafe situations. And when I said that back to that family, the family said, and I said to them, it sounds to me like they may be in the moderate stages of dementia. I think we need more supervision in this home. This is not adequate. It's not safe. They said this phrase. They said, she's not as bad as you're making it sound. And so I was confused by that because it sure sounded pretty unsafe to me that the gas was being left on, right? And so what I realized what was happening, and I think it's very, very common for family caregivers, is that I don't really want to admit that they're as bad as they might be because that demands a change on my part. Of maybe I need to take some vacation days that I wasn't planning on. Maybe I need to go part-time. Maybe we have to move mom. Maybe this is going to cost money. Maybe we have to sell her house and I don't have time for that right now. It affects our lives, right? So for us to admit that a mom or dad or a loved one is not safe in their home and this is not working anymore, it requires a change on our part. And so that's usually where that um, hesitancy to admit how things really are. And so my image here is kind of a goofy image. I apologize for my goofiness, but the idea of caregivers who are in close proximity to a loved one with dementia are slowly boiling in the pot of water, and we may not see clearly when we are in close proximity. It's not until we have a loved one from out of state that comes into town, for example, um, and says, wow, what's happening here? Like mom or dad is completely different than the last time I was here, or this does not look like a good idea. You know, usually is an objective person that comes in from the outside and says, no, this is not going to work. So we have to recognize if we are in close proximity to the person that we're caring for and about, that we might be blinded to our reality or we might be in denial about things. Because if we admit there's an issue, we might have to do something about it. I think that's normal human behavior, but it doesn't make it right, right? So, all right. We are going to have a sit down conversation with our loved one and give them a talking to. It's time for a family meeting where we confront them. I don't know if this affects anybody that's here, and so just pass this one by if this is not you. But I oftentimes run into family members that are still filled with logic and reason, and want to have a logical and rational conversation with their loved one who has dementia or any kind of cognitive impairment and give them a firm talking to. Of the reason that we're going to all these doctors is because you have this diagnosis and you don't remember things, and we want to just explain things to them. Well, truth be told, and oftentimes for some reason, there's a theme that families want to order pizza and have a family night and have a family meeting at the kitchen table. And so I kind of jokingly say, save your money on the pizza because the family meeting is not going to go well. There's going to be arguments, there's going to be discourse, disagreements, and it's going to raise your blood pressure. And they're not going to remember that you gave them a firm talking to. So it's kind of a waste of energy. And that's not the best approach for dementia, right? So if a person is navigating challenges that come along with dementia, it's important to remember that reason and logic are some of the first things that go out the window, right? So to force a person into a rational conversation is truly a waste of our time. So in this little box below the picture, it says you will likely win the logical conversation, but it won't feel good afterwards, right? So if you are trying to have a conversation with somebody that has any cognitive impairment, you're very likely going to win, but are you going to feel good after you've won that battle? Probably not, because it's not a fair fight, right? So we have to learn to just let it go. We're not going to have a family meeting. We're not going to give them a talking to. We're not going to sit them down because that's just not the best practice when it comes to dementia. All right, number 5. I made a promise to never. I'm so curious if I could see everybody by raise of hands, how many people have heard this one or been a part of this conversation of I've made a promise to never put my loved one. Oh, there are some hands. Okay, this is fun. I didn't realize that we could do that. I made a promise to never put my loved one into a community. And the thing that's really important for us to remember is that that particular generation maybe only ever knows of two different options. Everybody in one, like we're in our house that we lived in for 30 or 40 years, or we're in a very scary skilled care nursing home where everybody's slobbering on top of each other. For our older generation, that's all we ever knew. And when we went to go visit our grandmas, they were in this scary nursing home. What we have failed to catch everybody up on is that there are a lot of really beautiful options between those two, right? We know that isolation can be detrimental to our health. They say that based out of research in COVID, coming out of that time of isolation, that is equally as detrimental as smoking 16 cigarettes in a day, right? So we don't want to be isolated in our homes, but we also don't need to fast forward into, the what the movies kind of showed us and what used to be with skilled nursing homes. But now we have in-home care, we have adult day services, we have beautiful memory care communities that do not look institutional. They look home-like and welcoming and beautiful and safe, right? And the architecture of a memory care community, like the anthems, are created to care for a person who has dementia, right? So the actual architecture of the building cares for them. And so it's important for us when we think back to those promises that were discussed in the past. Number one, if when we were sitting around the campfire and those promises were made, was dementia part of that conversation? Usually it's not, right? Number two, if dementia was a part of that conversation, would they want you to be giving everything that gives you energy in life to be compromised because of this level of care that's required for them? And most of the time, when I ask caregivers, do you think that your loved one with dementia would want you to be suffering like you are right now because this is so stressful? Would they want that for you? And the answer is always no, right? So we have to allow for some fluidity around this conversation, a little bit of grace, a little bit of nuance and understanding. And also, it's not a fail to have somebody move into a memory community or to go to adult day services. I see that as an extension of care for them, right? And it is a promise to take care of them in the very best way that's best for them, right? So that could be a whole presentation on its own. Here's a conversation that is tricky because it affects being inside a home, it affects the neighborhood, and it affects those who are still driving. I have had family caregivers say to me, they're fine as long as they stay on their path, which again, in the house, in the neighborhood, or driving a short distance. And I've been in this arena now long enough to know that even their path in their familiar house where they have lived for 30 years, as dementia rears its ugly head, going to the bathroom could be a path that they're familiar with, but on any given day, they land up walking into the bedroom instead of the bathroom, and now the bedroom is used as a bathroom, right? Because we've lost our path. There's always a first time that the first wrong turn happens. In this subdivision where I'm sitting right now, when we moved here a few years ago, I became a part of the Facebook group that is part of my association. And not long into us living here, somebody posted, hey, my husband has Alzheimer's disease, and he always takes our little white dog for a walk around the block, but we can't find him now. Can you keep an eye out for my husband and our little white dog? Because that was the first day that the wrong turn was made, right? And so I kind of jokingly say, in the same way that a turkey has that little button that pops up and tells us when it's done at Thanksgiving, I almost wish that us humans had these little buttons that would pop up and say, hey, not today. We're not going to go for a walk by ourselves. We're not going to let them drive short distances because today is the day that they're going to take a wrong turn and something's going to be unsafe, right? Working in memory care communities, one of the most stark examples, and I have many, but a gentleman who lived here in the western suburbs was found 6 hours south in southern Illinois, standing in a cow pasture. And thankfully, the farmer found him in his cow pasture, and he had a wallet on him. And they called the sheriff and had to contact the family and say, "Hey, your dad, your husband is 6 hours away down in southern Illinois," because that was the day where the first wrong turn happened, right? And so we, again, if I just pause for a minute and say, what is it that us caregivers want to believe that they're okay on their own path by themselves? Truth be told, I think it's a universal understanding that if we let them go for a walk or out for a drive, we get a break, right? We get a breather. And so it feels kind of good to let them go for a 20-minute walk because we can finally be left alone in our homes for 20 minutes. I believe that's usually the mindset of a caregiver in terms of kind of uh, defending that decision to let them go on their own. Here's my charge to us that we don't want that to happen, right? Because we don't know when that first wrong turn happens. And now we have the police involved, we have strangers involved, we have their safety and security, their wallets, their other people when driving is included. So we may want to register our loved ones with a police department. Different areas have different kind of ways of doing this, but in the Chicago suburbs, the police departments have a registration process where you can register name, address, phone number, loved ones, like emergency contacts, and then a photo of them. So if somebody is found in the community, easy for them to help find their way home. And so medical bracelets with their name and diagnosis on it is also a good idea. That just cues the community that there might be something going on with their medical situation. And then, I just wanted to let you know that I just recently found on Facebook a gal started making these medical bracelets that are really, really pretty. They're so if at least females are averse to wearing a medical ID bracelet because maybe they're embarrassed or there's some stigma or something to that. Apparently, there's somebody that makes some really beautiful bracelets that are purple beads and pink beads and little, things that make them a little bit more attractive. So, by necessity, we are inventing new things, which is pretty neat. Also, I'm learning about these tiles that you can get from Amazon that you can either put in their shoestrings or attach to their cell phones, or use 360 on phones to kind of watch for a person. But even then, of course, I talked to a family member that said they always have their cell phone, but the one time they forgot their cell phone with 360 on it was the one time they took the wrong turn. So there's nothing that's completely fail-proof, right? So we want to be cautious. They don't elope or wander yet. So this is myth number 7. And again, I really truly think the underlying comment here is they're fine to go out on a walk or they're fine to be left alone because they haven't eloped yet. But why do we want to wait for that to happen by an emergency, right? So what we know based on some research done by the Alzheimer's Association is that if a person has wandered, I'm not saying that word right, wandered once, there's a 60% chance that they will wander again. And so oftentimes us caregivers will say, oh, it was just a fluke situation. Things weren't really normal in our house that day, or something kind of triggered them, and it won't happen again. They're fine. I have to go to work. Let's not talk about it anymore. And so we really want to downplay the risk of it happening again. But the research is showing us that there's a very high likelihood that it may happen again. It's important for us to understand that wandering and pacing are two different things. Wandering is kind of an aimless walking about. I just realized I have a typo on this slide. Sorry about that. Wandering is aimlessness. There's no agenda. There's not an urgency behind it. It's oftentimes out of boredom. or just maybe they were presented with an activity that was either too hard or too childish or too easy, and automatically you see them get up from the table and leave because they're not engaged correctly. And that's something we can talk to our family caregivers about, and professionals in memory care communities, that we have to have the just right challenge for them where they stay engaged so they don't wander. But truth be told, wandering is exercise, right? And so I'm okay with wandering at some point if they're in a safe environment, like a memory care community, because that's how they're getting exercise. And so that's different than pacing. Pacing has an agenda behind it. So in their reality, maybe they are trying to get out the door because they believe their children are still at school waiting for them. They're going to miss the bus. They're going to miss their taxi. They're going to be late for work, that they're in prison and they have to get out of prison, on and on. I'm sure many of you know some examples of this where there's this heightened emotional state where they're either scared or anxious. That's what becomes pretty dangerous, where on a cold winter's night, if they are insisting that they have to go catch the bus down the street, now we have an emergency, right? So we just want to know the difference between those two things. Excuse me. I recently, maybe a year ago, heard a gentleman share this story. He is a volunteer with the Alzheimer's Association. He leads support groups in the area. And he said the most offensive thing that anybody ever said to me when I moved my wife into a memory care was that caregiving stops when you move them into a memory care. And he almost lost it when he was telling that story. And to be very honest, because I do memory support groups in different memory care communities, this is offensive. Caregiving does not stop when you move your loved one into a memory care. It just sounds different. It changes. We're allowed to ask a memory care community like Anthem, are they eating? How much did they eat? Are they making friends? Are they engaging in the activities? When's the last time they had a bowel movement? Are they taking their medications okay? Do we have any challenging behaviors that we need to be aware of? Do they need the clothes for the new season that's coming around the corner? Do they need some new sweaters? Do they need more sheets? Have they lost all their socks? Do we need to order more of those, right? And so the caring never stops. It just changes. And so just a note for ourselves as caregivers that we recognize that, but also that we don't say things like this to other people, because it can be really, really hurtful to assume that you bring your loved one to a memory care and you just wash your hands of them and move on with your life. That is not anywhere near close to reality. And so, that's one of the big myths that is worth mentioning, because that can pack a punch when it comes to our emotions as caregivers. All right, number 9 myth: did we stop or change the meds? So this is where early on when I said we want to continue to work with the professionals, right? The medical professionals, when it comes to psychotropic meds, to and like anti-anxieties, medicines for hallucinations, any kind of medical treatments. It's not up for us to really decide when to stop and start them, and how quickly. So there are, for example, there are some meds that you can't stop cold turkey, right? You have to be titrated down slowly because there's effects to the person if they are stopped abruptly. There's always room for a conversation with the medical professionals of saying, hey, I don't know if this medication is effective or not. I don't really see any changes. But most of us don't realize that for some medications, it takes several weeks to start to work the way that they are intended. And so once in a while, I would have a family member say, well, we started this new med last Friday and I don't see any change, so I'm going to tell the doctor to, discontinue it. Well, that's not enough time for us to see how it might be interacting with our loved ones. And so at least having calm conversations with the medical professionals about side effects and whatnot before we just kind of start telling professionals what to do or not do with medications. There has to be a certain element of humility in that conversation because, yes, everybody's human and everybody makes mistakes, but we have to at least have the conversation, right? So I never want to suggest that all medical personnel are experts and perfect, but it's worth the conversation to see why they're doing what they're doing and why they want to see how things work out. In this note, this is a really good time for me to talk about this really, what I once called the secret sauce of memory care. And it might be helpful for some of you who are in the thick of figuring out what meds to keep, what meds to start, and those kind of things. So there is something, and there's competitors, so I'm not particularly shining the light on just this company, but there are other similar companies. But the premise I want you to know about. So gene site testing is a kind of laboratory test where a medical professional, say the director of nursing or a nurse practitioner or a doctor, can use they get a cotton swab from this laboratory and take a cotton swab of the inside of the cheek of our loved one, and they send it to the lab. And after a few weeks, this laboratory sends back results to the medical professional. They never send it to a family caregiver, but they'll send it back to the doctor or the nurse practitioner or the director of nursing. And it has these three columns, as you can see on the screen here. There's the green column, a yellow column, and a red column. And the green, so this is mostly for psychiatric medications, antipsychotics, mood stabilizers, and whatnot. The meds in the green column are meds that are recommended to work the best with that particular individual's body chemistry. The example here is just a made-up person, so I wouldn't write down any names of these medicines because your person might have a different list. The ones under the yellow column may or may not work with your person's body chemistry, but don't even waste your time and money and energy on the ones in the red column because based on your body chemistry or your loved one's body chemistry, they may not be effective. So for us, when we go to a doctor, we are able to circle back to our doctor and say, hey, this new medication is giving me a headache, or it's upsetting my stomach, or it's affecting my sleep. We can be self-aware and talk to our doctors about the side effects of medication. A person with dementia cannot do that. So this is what I, lovingly call kind of a secret sauce to memory care, where this test is saying, without doing all the, ebb and flow and back and forth on medications, let's at least get a shorter list of ones that we want to try from this green list, and then try these first. So it really reduces the amount of trial and error for psychiatric medications. It's not just people in memory care that use this test. When I did this presentation, I had a gentleman raise his hand and he said, I see a therapist. I am a therapist on the weekends, and we use this in our office for antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds, because it's just efficient, right? To go for the ones that are going to work the best for our body chemistry. So it's not just for memory care communities, but it's a really handy tool. So if you're kind of wrestling that pig down about which medicine to use or not use with your loved one, this is a really nice way. It's also important to know that some medications come in a topical form. And so, for example, if a person has a prescription for Ativan, it can come in a cream. And so a nurse would put a glove on their hand, which is important. Otherwise, they're going to be sleepy for the rest of the day. But they put a glove on their hand and they rub it on the back of their neck, like just below their neck, right? Below, between their shoulders, you might say. It's hard when you can't see me doing that, but and so that is a topical gel that calms a person. If all our non-pharmaceutical ways of giving a person a shower or having a person work with us safely are not effective, this is kind of a nice option, like 30 more minutes before, shower time, to use this topical gel where it kind of calms them and softens their edges a little bit. And they're just a little bit more docile when it comes to doing things that they may not want to do, like getting in a car or taking a shower and those kind of things. Myth number 10. Truth be told, we will probably not make it to all 17. I talked so much that we may not make it to 17, but I'll keep going until we get to our time. Myth number 10. My mom is declining faster than the other ladies in her group. So when I worked in a memory care community, there was a group of beautiful, beautiful ladies in the moderate stages of dementia care. And they were all friends and they all kind of did things together. They did the walking club together, flower arranging, the crafts, the whole thing. And these two sisters, the daughter of this particular resident, believed that the staff was not taking care of their mom the same way that we did all the other ladies, because their mom was declining faster than the other ladies. And for us, when I say that, that sounds silly, but for them, it felt very, very true. So we had to have a very honest conversation with them about it. We're giving the same kind of care to everyone here, but every individual is different. Just like what I said earlier about how once you've met one person with dementia, you've only met one person with dementia, right? No two people are the same. So all different kinds of things can affect how we are differentiated from each other. Age, ethnicity, genetic makeup. Maybe they have a disease that moves faster or slower than another person in their neighborhood. Comorbidities, mental health statuses, medications that they're on. Maybe they're on clinical trials. Maybe they have a history of trauma and various coping mechanisms, maybe a history of alcoholism. The list can go on, right? Whatever it is that makes us different than the person sitting next to us can make our experience different than our neighbor. And so we have to make sure that we're not doing what I now see is what maybe was happening is we're actually scared and we're seeing our mom decline and we would like somebody to blame. And so we would like to blame the staff here on her decline. That's putting it simply, but you always want to ask, what's the bigger conversation that's happening here? And the bigger conversation is we're scared and we see we're losing our mom right in front of our eyes and we don't like what we're seeing. So we're trying to figure it out. So everybody's doing the best they can. Truly, I believe that. But that information is important to know that every individual is on their own journey. All right, this pie always looks so yummy to me when I see this. I should not have chosen this picture. I had a gentleman once say his wife was in memory care, moderate to late stages. He said, my wife needs to lose weight and go on a low carb diet. And so we talked to him about it. The leadership team talked to him about it and learned that her pants were getting tight. And she was not diabetic. That's important information, right? So we're not having diabetic people eat high sugar levels. Very healthy, actually, she was. And we kind of honestly said to him, we're not putting her on a low carb diet. She's in moderate to late stages of dementia. We're talking about a quality of life here. Go to the store and buy her bigger pants, for Pete's sake. Because we're talking about a quality of life, which means if we have a birthday party here for somebody and everybody's eating cake, she's going to have a piece of cake too. Because I believe she was like 86 years old. And I just think that at 86 years old, if we want a piece of cake, we can have the piece of cake. Are you with me? And so we just go to the store. You can buy at some of these discount stores, you can buy pants for $7. Just go buy the bigger pants. We're not going to put older adults well into their dementia journey on a low carb diet, unless, of course, they are diabetic, right? So there are some exceptions to this. But really, truly putting our focus on what feels important to her and unlearning the thing that we live in all the time. So for us, if we are gaining weight, our thought is we need to go on a low carb diet, we need to eat fruits and vegetables, we need to exercise more. Dementia care is different than our arena that we live in, right? And so what matters most changes as we progress through the disease. All right, this is one of my favorite ones. I was volunteering as a support group leader not so long ago in the far northwest suburbs of Chicagoland. And a lady was there and she was tickled. She was entertained by this. She said, I would always have a giant bag of Costco peanut M&Ms as my own stash. My husband did not like treats. He did not like sweets, candy, anything like that. And one day I came downstairs and half my bag of peanut M&Ms was gone. And she was tickled by that because she was confused, but also learned kind of one big lesson of dementia care. And that is that our taste buds change as we get older, period, and in the arena of dementia care specifically. And so where a person may or may not have ever eaten desserts or candy or sweets, now things like that are sweet and salty start tasting really pleasant to us, right? In the same way, I have had folks that have particular beliefs about eating meat because of their religious values, who all along we would not feed them meat because of their religious values as I worked in memory care. And one day, this particular person reached over to their neighbor, picked up their cheeseburger, and ate the whole thing, including the cheeseburger, right? And so we had to have a meeting with the family and say, taste buds change. They really seem to enjoy that cheeseburger. Do you want us to continue to not give them meat because of their religious values that they've had their whole life? Or do we want to forego this because we're in a different reality now? And so there's no wrong answer to that question. It's just a matter of having the conversation. But there's a lot of things that can cause a change in our taste buds, even for us who are aging, right, in place, even if we don't have dementia. Maybe we have damaged saliva glands. I'm not going to say that word correctly. Coronavirus can really affect our taste buds. Antibiotics, cholesterol and low blood pressure pills, meds that cause dry mouth, gum disease, dentures that cause a bad taste, alcohol, smoking, cancer treatments. So there's a lot of different things that can cause a change in our taste buds, but dementia specifically is known for an increased interest in sweet and salty things. So if we have never brought mom and dad or a loved one a piece of pumpkin pie at Thanksgiving, you might be interested in trying it because they might really love it when in the past maybe they didn't. Just try it out, right? You never know. Oh, the other thing I want to talk about, kind of the intake about the previous slide about eating birthday cake or eating sweets and candy. The bigger conversation behind the conversation is rarely talked about. And here's where clarity is kindness. That's my 10-minute warning that I should zip it here soon. The conversation behind the conversation is that in this disease, there comes a point where appetites decrease and weight is lost because of the disease. And so what folks in typical memory care communities may not overtly say is we want them to eat whatever they will eat as much as possible right now, because there's going to be a time in this journey where they stop. And that's rarely talked about, but that's a very real motivation in terms of dietitians and folks working in memory care to make sure that I have been known to say, I'd rather have a person eat 2 pieces of pie before their vegetables rather than say, if you don't eat your vegetables, you're not going to get a piece of pie. I have a neighbor that takes her husband on a walk with dementia, and she said, well, we have to go on the walk before we have the ice cream. No, eat the ice cream, because there's going to be a point where their appetite diminishes and they lose weight significantly as a part of this journey. And we want to make sure that they have some healthy weight to them as they go into this journey. All right. Here's my last one. I do want to talk about this one, and then I'll zip it so we can have some time for questions. There is an assumption that knives and scissors cannot be used in memory care. And we are learning fast and furious that if a person was a chef and used a knife and cut vegetables their whole life, we can give them a knife and they can cut vegetables because they know exactly how to do it. It's called normalization, right? And so it's age appropriate activities, and they are safe to use knives. There are exceptions. There are people that have particular behaviors that we don't want to put knives in their hands and scissors in their hands. But if a person was a crafter, if they were a seamstress, if they were even a teacher of some sort, having them help you cut out shapes for the bulletin board is a fantastic way to keep them busy and engage them and give purposeful living. And so we don't want to stop the use of knives and scissors because we assume that they may not be safe. Every individual is different, like we've been talking about the whole time we've been together. But if it's deemed safe, we want to encourage that behavior because that's what they know and love, obviously. I will say that in my years working in memory care, I never saw somebody be unsafe with a scissors or a knife when that was part of their career, when that was part of their love and their hobbies, right? So we don't want to go straight to the childish scissors that never really cut things very well, right? We can use real scissors with the right group of people in memory care. All right, I'm going to go to the very end. I'm going to end with this particular um, it's a prayer that comes out of Alcoholics Anonymous, strangely. Not everybody knows this. It's the Serenity Prayer. You might be familiar with it. It feels important for this particular presentation because what we're realizing is that we need wisdom, right? And so it says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. There requires so much wisdom in these kind of topics, and that we have to use our resources and look to the professionals to kind of chime in and at least have the conversation. So this is my prayer, that we all have wisdom as we navigate these waters, and that we learn from each other through support groups or from befriending others in the communities that we are in, and learn from each other. Are there any questions?
If anyone has any questions, you can either raise your hand or put it in the chat. Give everybody a couple of minutes in case they're typing into the chat. LaVon, of the ones that you went through, which one is the most common?
Oh, that's a great question. I think the one of, as long as they stay on their path, they're fine. That one is the most common, and it scares me the most because taking the wrong turn on the path is the most dangerous. Driving, walking, or within our house, right? And so that is a very, very common one. Good question.
Excellent. Okay, Karen, your mic you should be able to come off mute.
Okay, thank you. My question is, my mother has an obsession with counting her money multiple times and checking for her credit card over and over. I mean, just constantly when we're outside of the house. And I just wondered if that is a common thing for someone with dementia.
Yes, it could be for a lot of different reasons. Number one, it feels very adult, and it feels like what adults do. So she's falling back into what feels normal for her. Like we talked about the word normalization, that's an adult activity, but it might be a soothing thing for her too. For any of us, it feels good to know what we have and that we have it. It might change into other things at some point too. It might include her kind of accumulating I don't know, fuzzy blankets or sweaters from other people's rooms or different kinds of things. So that's how it kind of morphs as time goes on, but things that bring her comfort. What I would do, if you're feeling clever, is at some point, if you ever get those like fake credit cards that come in the mail where they want you to think that there's a credit card in there, but it's just a piece of cardboard. Maybe take something like that, or a credit card that no longer works, and replace those with the real ones that she might have, so that she, if she loses them, that the real ones don't go missing, because that's a pain in the butt to replace, right? And then I would let her have up to a certain amount of cash. If this particular generation loved having cash, right? So if it makes her feel great that she has, 50 or even maybe even up to $100 in cash, that's a thing for her to do. And it might bug us that she won't stop doing it, but she likes doing it. I would just let her do it.
I do.
Because,
She is,
yeah.
she carries cash and a credit card. It's just that, it's the constant count. And I'm sure it bothers me more than her, but it's just the constant counting and making sure it's there constantly. Yeah.
Because every time she does it is the first time she does it, right? So
Yeah.
it is
Mhm.
bugging us more than it's bugging her, because it's the first time for her. I'm
Right.
curious what her job was before she retired.
Yeah, it didn't have anything to do with money.
Oh, okay.
Nothing.
Okay.
Yeah. No,
Interesting.
nothing.
I think it just is
Thank you.
something that brings comfort and her relaxing. What I wouldn't do is take the money away.
No,
Right.
no, I don't think I could do that.
That's right.
I couldn't if I wanted to.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you. So there's a question. When I go to visit a friend, is it helpful to bring photos to look at or something to spike memories from long ago, which seem to be the only memories she has?
I love that. Absolutely. That's a fantastic idea. 5 stars on that idea. The sweet space where a person with dementia can be confident and feel good is those old memories, right? And so pictures really bringing back the old cars or people that they may recognize. That's a wonderful use of time, is to reminisce, even extending the conversation of, like, I know, how much was a loaf of bread back then, or how much did you think you paid for that car, or tell me about your engagement story and how did so and so propose, or just extending the conversation beyond the pictures of, hey, do you know whatever happened to that teacher at the high school, or I just saw that teacher at the high school and it looks like he's bald now, or like whatever, so just using those photos as a launching pad to even more storytelling. And the more storytelling you do for them to listen to your storytelling is a sweet space. That's a fun thing. I would even write down some of those memories if surprises come along the way.
Okay, next one. Do you have any thoughts on chemo and dementia?
I don't have any thoughts, except that there has been, some findings that chemo can lead to, my least favorite word, brain fog. I just do not like that word for lots of different reasons, but brain fog or some dementia-like behavior. So I would just maybe talk to the primary care physicians or the oncologists about those risks, just because I'm not a medical professional, but I do hear there's a relationship there.
Thank you. Megan has a question. Megan, you can come off mute.
Oh, thanks. I was just curious if you have much experience with folks with dementia that are very, very computer literate, and taking them off the computer is all but impossible. And there's lots of problems, obviously, that came up with that.
Yeah, that is a very real problem, because it used to be that the older generation wanted nothing to do with the computers these days, right? Or their smartphones. And now they have them. They're bringing them into memory care communities, right? Even my own father got kind of swept up into online auctions and that addictive kind of thing. So that's a real thing. The only thing that I'm as I'm thinking on stage here, the only thing I'm really thinking of as an alternative is there's something called a GRAN pad, GRANPAD, and you can buy them on Amazon. And it looks like an iPad, but it is a modified version, and it's a simplified version for seniors, especially seniors with dementia. So they can still text, they can still FaceTime, they can still play games. There's a lot of things they can still do, but there's certain things they can't do, like, online auctions and shopping. And, I'm guessing you can set the controls to say what they can. So instead of taking something away altogether, it might do well to have a modified replacement so that they still feel like they have their own technology and nobody else has it, and they can, play with that or interact with it. But some pretty big things can happen wrong if we don't start taking it away sooner than later, because of purchases being made, of the scammers that are out there, of malware stuff that's out there right now. And then it's a pain in the butt for family members to try to get all the malware stuff. Yeah, exactly. The passwords and all that kind of stuff. So the sooner we get it out of their hands, the better. But giving them something in a replacement is better than just cold turkey taking it away.
Thank you.
Okay. Kristen had a follow-up question. Kristen, I took you if you want to come off mute, I just want to make sure that we're answering the question completely the way you're intending it. Are you able to come off mute? Maybe not. So the question is, do you know if they happen to experience brain fog from the chemo? Is it usually reversible if treatment is stopped or modified? Kristen, I guess my question is, does the person have dementia, or you're more concerned about the brain fog from someone who does not already have? Yes. Okay. So this is for someone who has dementia. Do you know if they happen to experience brain fog from the chemo? Is it usually reversible if treatment is stopped or modified?
That's a great question for a neurologist. I actually want to know the answer to that myself. So email me once you find out, because there's people in my own life that I am kind of curious about that. The reason that I bring up brain fog is that so many people talk about it as if that's the diagnosis. For me, brain fog is a symptom of something else that's going on. And so it's telling us that something's not right. It's not normal. It's not typical for us to have brain fog. And that's telling us that something is wrong. And is it treatable, is what you're asking. And I don't honestly know the answer to that. So I apologize. But I think that's a great question for an oncologist or a neurologist to say, is this something that we can bring back to a baseline or make better? Maybe the dementia doesn't come back to a typical or a previous baseline, but maybe the brain fog stops a little bit. But then how do we know what's dementia and what's brain fog? I'm kind of confused about those things myself. So you're asking some really, really great questions, even though I did not answer it very well.
Any other questions? I think that might be it. We want to thank you, LaVon, for. Oh, there is one. Hold on.
Lisa has a question here.
Yep. Okay, Lisa, you can come off mic. Are you able to unmute yourself?
Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
Yep, now we can.
Okay. Sorry. I'm so not that familiar with Microsoft Teams, so it took me a minute.
Yeah.
Thanks for all your helpful information. So I have a sister in her early 70s, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's a year ago. And before that, she was pretty upfront with us. She was telling us that she thought she had issues. She was worried that she had Alzheimer's. She got legal documents giving us, power of attorney and things like that. And as time has gone by, she's become more and more resistant to us setting up protective measures for her. She's still living alone, and we have a lot of family support. We're working on a placement for her. But she has, in the last few months, started saying, I am getting better. I'm going to be able to drive again. I don't need any help. She seems so like sure of herself. And she's kind of forgetting what her limitations are. We have so many things in place for her, which make it easy for her to do her day to day. So, we're just being really straightforward with her and telling her what's gone on in the past. I don't know if there's a better way to talk to her about that. We're trying not to pull any punches with her, but then she forgets. So we can have that. Yeah, we can have that conversation a million times. And maybe that's all we can do. I just wondering if there's give any advice about how to have those conversations with her when she's saying that she is okay.
My spidey sense that's going off is that she started sensing that she was losing control of some things in her life, and consciously or unconsciously it scared her. And so now she's kind of going the other direction. I particularly, and you do not have to subscribe to this, I particularly have a theory that a person with dementia has a spirit or a soul inside of them that is untouched by dementia. And it's the thing that protects their pride. It is their coping mechanisms. It's the thing that lashes out when they feel threatened. It's still there. And it sounds like deep inside of her soul, she senses what's happening and she's scared. And so now she's also maybe doing what a lot of parents do by never wanting their children to worry. And so I'm going to present myself in such a way where you stop getting into my business like you are, or you stop worrying about me. I'm fine. Don't you worry about me. Look, I'm even better. Look over here, squirrel. And so please take some attention off of me so that you leave me alone, because now we're talking about me moving from my house, and that was never part of the deal. Like, I never wanted that part. Or fill in the blank with the example of like, now you took my checkbook, and now I'm seeing that I'm losing all these things, and I'm not managing my meds anymore, and somebody else is. At some point, I may not even choose what I eat for my meals. And so there's this loss and loss and loss. She maybe got a feel for that and started panicking a little bit, consciously or unconsciously. Like, I literally think that deep down inside, they are able to respond to their environment like that, unbeknownst to them, where they also will maybe not even remember the conversations that are happening. So what I encourage people to do is to continue to give them some empowerment of choices, right? We're going to take the idea of you moving to a memory care may not be up for discussion, but you get to go on the tours with us, and you get to eat the food, and you get to meet the staff, and you can be a part of the conversation. Maybe if that works for some people, not everybody. Or we're going to leave. Do you want to walk to the place where we're going, or do you want to drive? Do you want to go to this place for lunch or this place for lunch? So you're giving her choices where she then continues to feel like she's in charge of something, that her voice is being heard in some way. That's really important, even if it's a small thing. Did you want the chicken sandwich or you want a hot dog? Whatever those small choices are, so that she feels like she's being recognized in the conversation, because it sounds like she's panicking right now deep down inside. But in terms of your approach, I think you have to read the room. I mean, for you to tell her that she has a diagnosis, it will feel probably to her like it's the first time every time. And so there might be a time where you have to be honest with her, but there might be times where you're just like, okay. Because if it's at 8:00 tonight and everybody's sitting down at dinner and she's like, I'm not moving to a memory care, you just say, okay. And then you enjoy dinner together, because it's not worth the talking to at that moment, right? So you kind of have to feel the moment and just let her have some wins once in a while in the conversation, because It's about something that's going to maybe happen in 3 months, and it's not right now. So why are we going to ruin our dinner tonight? Kind of thing. So
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's really helpful. I really appreciate what you're saying. And I am very, very much a believer that she does have, like you said, a soul that is not affected by Alzheimer's. And that makes perfect sense, what you're saying. Appreciate that.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Well, LaVon, we want to thank you very much. This was very informative and very helpful for everybody on here. We did record this presentation, and so it will be posted on our YouTube channel tomorrow, and then shortly on our website. So if you have a loved one or a friend who you think might benefit from this webinar that you just attended, please feel free to have them come to our YouTube channel or our website, and they can find all our great webinars right on there for them to watch whenever they're able to. So thank you everybody for attending. Thank you, LaVon, again. That was fantastic. And we'll see everybody hopefully again next month. All right, everyone have a great evening.